Hey all, so as promised, I'm going to do a video about doing a wash or a shade. You'll hear those terms used kind of intermittently, right? I like to use Citadel. Oops, let me get this camera thing here. I like to use Citadel shades personally, but I have a whole box of Army Painter Quick Shades, which is another cool brand that I enjoy using. Right? So just real quick, the reason I like Citadel shades, I feel that they are just already pretty thin when you use, because shades are always thin. Right? This is not like paint. As you can see on there, it's almost like looks like oil, which is perfect. This is what I want. I like this thin. I got to get my thumb. Here, you got it, honey? Mm-hmm. All right, you see how that's just kind of real thin as I brush it? That's what I want. That's the kind of consistency. So three major kind of things. We have what we call shades and washes. These two are essentially the same thing. And then you have glazing. And I'll do another video later about glazing that deals with how you thin out your paints or use shades to glaze, and how you apply it to your model. So I have right here this little robot cyborg killer dude that I've been working on. And all you see right now is what I call the base layer. These are the first bits of paint that are kind of blocking out areas of color for me. Right, so there's going to be some silver. I have like a copper and a goldish or brass tones in there. I've left areas black on purpose because I'm going to change colors on there, change colors with my painting techniques later on. This is just basic blocking it out. Lay the paint down. So I do my painting. I thin out my paints always with water. You put down your acrylic, mix it with water, get it good and thin. You can always add more paint. You can't really take much paint off without impacting the entire model. So with shade, you can do a couple of things. Now, if you're using one of these Army Painter washes, they do come out thick. And so I'm going to demonstrate how I mix this first. Sarah, if you want to get in here. I don't know what you can see. All right. So that comes out pretty, not only is it a thick consistency, but that color is dark. It's almost like syrupy. Okay. This is going to coat your model fine. It's going to impact the shade and the entire color of it. But it is going to do its job, and it's going to cling to that model. Kind of at a beginner level, this is great. You want to just, sometimes you just want to wash that model up, make sure it hits the recesses, and it's good. The whole purpose of shades and washes is to bring out the detail in your model. So, as I said, I've got the model here with the base layer colors, no shade or anything on it. Now, if I was to use the quick shade, because of its consistency, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a bunch of water with that. So as you saw, I just dropped some water in it. I come over here, I mix the snot out of it. I like, and you should probably want your shades to be good and thin. You want them runny in a consistency. You can also lighten or darken. To lighten it, just add more water to dilute the stuff. You can get darker shades and mix in so you can find a middle ground. I'm going to take my hand and I'm just going to see how the shade looks on me. I notice the color's dark, but you see how the pigments run into the creases and the natural little divots in my skin. That's the idea that you want with your model. And like I said, you can do this a couple ways. I'm not going to use this particular shade for this model. I'll probably use it later on when I'm glazing this guy out some more and doing some more work on him. My brother sent me a bunch of these for my birthday back in October. But I'm going to use the Gnome oil. All right, I'm going to get a bit onto my improvised palette. The nice thing about painting and how I approach it is you can't screw it up. Even when you do, you can't screw it up. You can always, everything can be fixed, everything can be changed. You can even get the paint, if you're using acrylics, off of those models real easy. Now, like I said, you can do it a couple of ways. I already know what the consistency of this is. I already know what it looks like on my skin and on the models. And because this guy is a robot killer dude, that I'm going to give a real messy finish. In the end, make them look all battered and beaded. I like that it's dark. I like how dark the shade is falling into the creases. And I like this dark shade my skin is turning into. The reason you do this after you do your base paints is because you want to get all those little recessed areas to pop out. And we do that by adding the shadow, which is where our dark color is going. Now, like I said, a couple ways. You can just put a little on your brush, you know, and I'll dab a bit off on my thumb. Let me go ahead and show my thumb, right? So I know how the shade is coming off, because I want to control it in this case. So I get a little bit of control, and I can go to a recessed area on the model and just kind of paint it in, right? And you can do that for every little crevice and bring out that shade as much as you like. Or the other way you can do it, and it's depending on your painting style, it depends on how you want to tint your model. I get a nice size brush like so. I'm going to dip it straight into the known oil. All right, just check on my thumb how it's controlled, and I want this all over him, right? Because this is going to help me later on when I'm doing highlight work. It's going to help me when I'm doing my detail work. So let me go ahead and I'm just opening up Citadel shades. You can do this with. You can dip your brush right into it and kind of work straight from there. Don't do that with your army painter washes, because that stuff is very thick. I've not encountered a thicker shade. All right, so I'm just bathing this guy in this shade. I want that runny consistency everywhere. This is going to help me later on. I want him to look like he's had oil spilled. It's going to help with rust effects. But the major idea, look, I'm even putting it on the light. I want the light, like fixtures damaged and such. But you'll notice you should be able to see a lot of the detail in the mold, in the sculpt of the model coming out. Okay, I'm going to show you what not to do while you're kind of bathing this, and I'm doing this on purpose. Okay, I just loaded up a ton of that shade, and now you can see it pulling. Like, it's not just going into the recesses, but it's pulling. If you do that and you mess it up, just wipe the brush off on a paper towel, on something, and you can actually tap your brush and pick that up and move along. All right, make your mistakes, screw up. It's part of the learning process, and everything can be salvaged. Okay, I have him glued down to a grizzly can. But I would like to say specifically to Chief, to let him know come this July, I will be a year dip-free, because I think my wife was about to kill me for dipping and everything. So now I just use the cans I have or had left over to hold down my models for me, because I got big fat hands. Okay. Once you have your model good and coated over, okay, you let them, set them somewhere and let them dry. You should already be able to see, as you can see, how the color has recessed into where these pipes or these wires, and like that color's going to change later. But see how in the divide it's falling? As it dries, that pigment's going to really darken in that area. And applying all of it everywhere is going to darken the overall colors. This is why I'm going to come in with highlight layers later on. So you just let it sit for however long it takes. If you use a fan, it can take like 5 to 10 minutes. Me, I just let it sit for about an hour, and I'll come back to it, or come back to it when I'm feeling like it. But you'll see the color darken it, and that's how your shade and your washes work. Different color shades will tint different colors in a different way. Sometimes if I want like a real shiny, lustered silver color, instead of using that Nuln Oil, I have a purple wash that I'll water down and I'll brush it up with. That purple, then go in and I highlight it later on with lighter silvers, kind of makes that color pop. So you can play with the various colors of the shades and how you can apply them. You can do like I did and bathe the snot out of the thing, or go in with a finer tip brush and just select areas that you specifically want to touch and have, you know, emphasized over another area. But otherwise, bathing is just as fine. It's just getting that pigment into those recesses. So when you go in for your next layer of color, you're just coloring kind of the higher areas and letting the shadow be shadow. So I hope this helps. If not, I had fun making it because my wife held the camera and then had to deal with my erratic nature. So here you go. I'll show you what this looks like later on when it dries.